Big news in the critical metals race. China has just announced a new export ban on key strategic minerals. In an aggressive countermove, Beijing is tightening controls on rare earth elements and other critical metals vital for advanced technologies. This April 2025 announcement comes as part of China's sweeping response to recent US trade measures. According to Chinese state media, exports of several rare earth metals and products will now be heavily restricted worldwide. The curbs even cover high-tech rare earth magnets and finished products, making them hard to replace. This surprise move is sending shockwaves through global tech and defense industries, which rely on China for these materials. It's a dramatic escalation that squeezes Western supply of minerals used in weapons, electronics, electric vehicles, and more. This isn't China's first strike in the critical minerals arena. It's the latest in a series of restrictions Beijing has rolled out since 2023. Let's recap July 2023. China required special licenses to export gallium and germanium, two obscure but crucial metals for semiconductor chips, citing national security. The West took notice as prices for those metals spiked almost 20% after China's controls. October 2023. Beijing tightened export rules on graphite, the material used in EV battery anodes, by making exporters apply for permits. Since China produces over 90% of the world's graphite, this move threatened battery supply chains. December 2023. China banned exports of technology for making rare earth magnets, adding to an existing ban on tech for rare earth extraction. Rare earth magnets are critical for EV motors, wind turbines and missiles, and China's dominance in refining these 17 rare earth elements, about 90% of global output, gave it huge leverage. August 2024. China imposed export licenses on antimony, a metal used in flame retardants, munitions and solar panels. Within months, antimony shipments from China to the US collapsed by 97% and prices jumped 200%. December 2024. In a sharp retaliation to US chip sanctions, Beijing banned all exports of gallium, germanium and antimony to the United States. Chinese officials cited national security and the dual-use, civilian and military nature of these minerals. In principle, the export of gallium, germanium, antimony and superhard materials to the United States shall not be permitted, China's Commerce Ministry declared. This was a major salvo, given China controls 50 to 90% of global supply for those minerals. Washington's response at the time, "We will take necessary steps," and it only underscored the need for the US and allies to de-risk and diversify critical supply chains away from China. Fast forward to now, April 2025, and China has doubled down yet again, this time targeting the rare earth elements themselves. Beijing had hinted for months it might wield its rare earth dominance as a weapon, and now it's following through. Why is Beijing doing this? China's latest ban is widely seen as retaliation against US trade moves. Just this week, US President Donald Trump dramatically hiked tariffs on most Chinese goods, escalating the trade war. Beijing's answer is this new metals embargo, part of a broader counter-package of tariffs and tech restrictions. By choking off exports of critical minerals, China is leveraging its dominance in mining and processing, essentially saying two can play this game. Chinese officials argue these measures are about national security. The controlled metals have important military applications, so Beijing insists it's justified in restricting exports of such dual-use items. For example, gallium and germanium are used in radar systems and night vision devices, and rare earths go into fighter jet components and missile guidance. From China's perspective, limiting these exports is a countermeasure to US semiconductor bans and other tech sanctions aimed at China. As one Chinese industry figure put it, "It comes as no surprise that China has responded to increasing restrictions by American authorities with its own restrictions on strategic minerals." In short, Beijing is signaling it won't hesitate to weaponize its vast mineral supply if pressured. Why do these obscure-sounding metals matter so much? It turns out modern technology and defense systems depend on them. Gallium, a byproduct of aluminum smelting, is essential for high-performance semiconductor chips, and 5G radio components. Without gallium used in gallium nitride and gallium arsenide chips, advanced radar and telecom equipment suffer. Germanium, a brittle metalloid, is used in infrared optics for night vision, fiber optic cables, and solar panels. It's critical for the sensors that military and space agencies rely on. Antimony, a metal used in alloys and flame retardants, is key for making bullets and explosives stable, and is found in certain batteries and infrared devices. The US military lists antimony as a critical material for munitions. Rare earth elements, a group of 17 metals like neodymium, dysprosium, and yttrium, are often called the vitamins of high-tech industries. They are used to make the powerful magnets in EV motors and fighter jet actuators, guidance systems, wind turbines, and smartphones. Heavier rare earths like dysprosium and terbium are indispensable for military-grade permanent magnets that retain magnetism at high temperatures. Think jet engines and missile control fins. China produces around 90% of the world's rare earths, so any restriction is a huge headache for manufacturers worldwide. The strategic value of these materials is exactly why China's dominance is viewed as a geopolitical trump card. As of now, the US has only a single active rare earth mine, and it still sends raw ore to China for processing in many cases. Alternative sources exist for some minerals, like gallium from refineries in Europe or germanium from Canada, but replacing China at the scale needed is extremely difficult in the short term. Beijing knows this, and it has timed its moves for maximum leverage, hitting materials the US and its allies cannot easily self-supply. China made that list strategically. They picked the things that are crucial for the US economy, notes Mel Sanderson of American Rare Earths, referring to the new rare earth controls. Washington and its allies are reacting with alarm, but also determination. A White House spokesperson responded to December's mineral ban by emphasizing that it only underscores the importance of strengthening our efforts with other countries to de-risk and diversify critical supply chains away from China. In other words, the West is now racing to secure alternative sources of these critical minerals. We're already seeing steps to rewire supply chains. The United States and Europe have launched initiatives to invest in domestic mining and refining, from rare earth processing plants in California and Estonia to new lithium mines in Australia. Stockpiling is underway. The United States has built up some strategic reserves of rare earth oxides and is funding projects to recycle metals from old electronics. But as experts warn, these efforts will take years. Friday's move is likely to galvanize efforts in the West to build alternative supply chains. Progress toward that goal has been slow, observes Jacob Gunter of the Mercator Institute, noting that developing new mines and refineries can't happen overnight. It's going to take time, adds Mark Smith, CEO of a US rare earth mining venture, underscoring that patience will be needed to catch up. At the same time, countries rich in minerals are seizing the opportunity. Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America are being courted as new suppliers for critical minerals. Notably, Ukraine has become a focus of US interest for its mineral wealth. In fact, the United States and Ukraine have just drafted a major critical minerals deal aimed at opening up Ukraine's vast deposits of lithium, rare earths, and other metals to American companies. President Trump framed it bluntly as getting money back for the American taxpayer in exchange for past aid, implying the West will finance Ukraine's recovery by tapping its resources. This proposed deal, expected to be signed soon, would create a fund for Ukraine to funnel a share of mining revenues back to the United States, up to $500 billion worth. It's a striking example of how Western nations are scrambling to secure new supply lines for critical materials, from Eastern Europe to the Americas. Meanwhile, voices in industry are calling this confrontation a wake-up call. China is weaponizing access to minerals critical for the US military and technology firms. It's time to end our reliance on China and secure our future, warns John Cherry, CEO of Perpetua Resources, which is developing an antimony mine in Idaho. Others note that China's gambit may backfire in the long run by pushing the West to invest more aggressively in self-sufficiency. But in the near term, Beijing clearly has the upper hand and it's willing to use it. China is willing to escalate, says Nathan Pekasic of Horizon Advisory. This is likely an opening salvo in an iterative game of negotiation with the US. In other words, we may be witnessing just the beginning of a high-stakes economic standoff over critical minerals. So what does this all mean? In short, the race for critical metals is now front and center in geopolitics. China's latest export ban underscores how control of materials like rare earths, gallium and more has become a strategic weapon, one that can disrupt industries and shift the balance of power. Western countries are urgently trying to reduce their vulnerability by diversifying supply chains and investing in new sources. But those solutions will take time to bear fruit. The coming months will test how quickly the rest of the world can respond to China's dominance in this arena. What do you think about this critical metals race? Let's discuss in the comments below. Like, share and subscribe for more critical metals news.